So this is a video about adaptations of books that have been made into movies or, is more and more common today, have been made into television shows or series on whatever streaming platform, or sometimes just regular TV that you see. Adaptations of books have existed basically as long as movies have existed, though today it seems to me like they're getting more and more prevalent. I feel like I see a new adaptation at least once or twice a year. For example, at the time of this recording, part two of Dune came out, I think a month or two ago. The previous December saw the release of the Percy Jackson TV series being adapted. And I don't know why it seems like they're more common. Either they always have been, or I'm just paying more attention. But I'm going to talk about them and what they do. Adaptations, they get made, they often deviate from the book. Some do a really good job, and some most decidedly do not. Mostly because they change too much. A big part of it is, who are these adaptations made for? Usually, the biggest audience for them is whoever read the book intentionally or has read it beforehand. So they need to tailor to that audience when they make them. But they also need to make some changes to try and reach a broader audience of people that have not read the book. Like, like Fight Club, for example, that was adapted from a book, and the book is very different from the movie in a lot of ways, but it keeps the same themes alive and also made changes to make it more accessible to the audience that has not read the book, which I've discovered a lot of people haven't, or a lot of people. I know people that didn't even know it was a book until I told them it was a book, which I don't know how that's possible, but that's not really important. And it's like that with other movies too, like Miyazaki, the award-winning director for animated movies, The Spirited Away. He did Howl's Moving Castle. That was also a book. No one knew it was a book. And there's examples like that all over. I mean, Blade Runner is adapted from a book. Die Hard is sort of adapted from a book. That's a different story, but I'm not going to get into that because that's not what this is about. So it makes sense to change it. One of the biggest things is text to screen. It's a different medium, so that could be why. Like, take Harry Potter, for example. When you read the book Harry Potter, you get Harry's inner monologue. It's from a first-person perspective. You're in his head looking out. Whereas when you see the movie, you're like a third party looking in on the scene. So that's one of the reasons that the books are different from the movies. And that makes sense, because it'd be weird if the entire movie was shot from Harry's point of view, just inside his head. I mean, I've seen movies like that, and they're not very good. I mean, there was a movie called Hardcore Henry years ago that did something like that, and it wasn't very good. It was a thing. So that's one of the reasons why it's always different. And sometimes there are differences to the story that make a lot of sense. And sometimes they don't make a lot of sense. Like, going back to Harry Potter, let's take Goblet of Fire over here, the fourth Harry Potter movie. It is one of the better Harry Potter movies. It actually has Voldemort's resurrection in it, which is one of my favorite scenes. However, they made changes that were disappointing in it. For example, I remember when I read the book and reading about the hedge maze in the book, and like, that's going to be awesome on screen. And then the movie came out, and none of the stuff in the hedge maze is in the movie. It was just evil hedges. It was The Happening Part 2. So even if a movie's good, they can change something that doesn't work so much. However, sometimes movies are drastically different, and they still work fantastically. For example, take I forget the movie I was going to say. Let's go with Lord of the Rings. There are many, many, many things different in the Lord of the Rings adaptations. There is stuff that is either shortened or just straight up removed entirely. but that's fine because they're still really good movies. I mean, Return of the King won like 11 Academy Awards, which is great. And then the main part about it is they need to keep the themes, central themes and ideas and meanings of the books intact when they adapt them. And sometimes they fail to do that. That's why the Percy Jackson series that came out was so good, and the Percy Jackson movies were so terrible. And there's other things like that, like the book Aragon. That was one of my favorites growing up. Movie, terrible. Well, so that's the real thing. However, audiences need to somewhat temper their reactions. They shouldn't expect a one-to-one exact copy of what they read. I mean, when the trailer for the first Dune came out, I was a little bit excited, but I didn't get that excited about it, because who knew if it would actually be good or not. And I think that's the way it is, because you're not going to see exactly what you expect, because also everyone pictures it differently in their mind's eye. I mean, the sandworms, to me, looked actually different in the movie than how I always pictured them. And also, how I pictured them was infinitely worse than how they looked in the movie. So, that was good. That was good. And that's the main thing. A movie, it can be different. It can be good and be different. It can be bad and be different. Changing moments from the story, or adding or removing things, is not categorically good or bad. It is necessary when they make the jump from a text medium to a visual medium, but they need to keep it the same, just enough that the main story gets across, the main idea. And sometimes they don't do that, and those movies are bad and usually fail. Like, for example, Aragon, that was going to be bad even if the book didn't exist, but that's it. And also, no one remembers that movie except for me. But that's basically all I have to say. I mean, one-to-one adaptation will not happen. It's not possible for it to happen, even if it already is a visual medium, like when 300 or Watchmen or Sin City or V for Vendetta. They're not perfect adaptations of the graphic novels because the art style is different. And so, yeah, I guess that's my final thoughts on the matter. It's going to be different. It will be different. You can't really stop it from doing that. However, that doesn't make it bad or good. It just makes it how it is. Just don't go in expecting a perfect adaptation. Go in with an open mind and judge the movie for what it is without always comparing it to what came before. That's all I have. Thank you and goodbye.